Hey everyone, welcome to our Inside Session for this week. I'm Catherine Joy. I'm the president of the Alliance for Women Film Composers, and I am really excited about today's session where we get to talk about this incredible Real Change grant, which you may know a little bit about, and after today you'll know all about it. So a wonderful host for this session is going to be my dear friend and collaborator, Miriam Cutler. Miriam is one of the founders of the Alliance. She is a three-time Emmy-nominated composer and is very passionate about documentaries, and you've probably seen many of hers, including RBG or Love Gilda or Dark Money or Hunting Ground. So thank you, Miriam, so much for hosting today.
Yes, it's not every day we get to give out money.
Exactly. Yay. I'm going to quickly go through and introduce our other three wonderful guests. We have Christophe Beck, who I'm sure you all know about, who is an LA-based Canadian composer. Yay, Commonwealth. He studied music at Yale. He is known for so many incredible movies. I'm looking at all his credits like Edge of Tomorrow, Crazy Stupid Love, Pitch Perfect. And of course, he scored the Oscar and Grammy-winning animated film Frozen, including Marvel films like the Ant-Man films. So Chris, your credits are fantastic, and we're so grateful to have you here with the AWFC today. Welcome. And then we have Erin Collins, who is the Vice President of Film, Television, and Developing Media for SESAC, overseeing the LA-based department, servicing SESAC's composers and publishers. And Erin, we're thrilled to have you back with the AWFC today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have Sultana Isham, who is an award-winning film composer, violinist, writer, and scholar based in New Orleans. And she is a fellow of the Sundance Composers Lab and the Skywalker Sound Design Lab from 2020. And she has worked on many fantastic projects, including her upcoming film score for The Neutral Ground, which we'll be hearing about today. Sultana, it is wonderful to have you here at the AWFC.
Thank you for having me.
So Miriam, I'm going to hand over to you, but I'll be hanging out too, and I'm really excited about this conversation. And also, I just want to welcome all of our attendees. It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Earlier this year, I got a wonderful call or an email, I'm not sure which. I was invited to be part of this advisory board for Real Change, a wonderful grant for composers in their mid-level career. And it's basically in order to help increase diversity and also to give an extra shot in the arm. I think we've all experienced, we've written a great score and then we go, oh man, the budget's just a little bit too low and I wish I could hear it played. Well, now this is an opportunity for composers who find themselves there and are really ready to make that move to a new level in their career. And if they just had a little more money for the budget, they could really, exhibit what they're able to do. So this is what exactly this grant is targeting, people like that with a real emphasis on diversity. So I'm going to now turn it over to Chris and Erin because they're the ones that had the idea. I don't know who originated it. Chris, was it you? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Chris, tell us what inspired you to do this.
Sure. Thanks, Miriam. It's a pleasure to be here. I went through a kind of a burnout period in my career 5 years ago or so, and I took 6 months off to recharge my batteries. And by that point, I had just been so busy and it was just go, go, go for really from the time I started that I didn't really have much time for reflection, but there was this kind of low-key awareness throughout that period that I was taking part in and benefiting greatly from an industry that was really absurdly dominated by white men. And it was around that time when there was a lot of attention on the Oscars. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but there was one year in particular I remember where there was a lot of media attention placed on the lack of diversity in the nominations, and all that made me think, here I am, I decided to take a 6-month sabbatical. I have the time now to really devote to this idea. And this was after Frozen. And so I the wild success of that film and the soundtrack gave me some resources to put toward it as well. And I thought, I've always told myself if I ever had the time and money that I would maybe do something about this, or try to anyway. That's when I started really thinking about it. I set up a lot of lunches with people in the industry, composers, people in hiring positions. And this particular grant is a result of a conversation I had with JB Bontemps. Some of you may know him, but it was hatched over a lunch that I had with him, one of several. And the idea was basically to do just as Miriam described, which is to target composers who've already been hired on a project. And so the decision already has been made by filmmakers to hire a composer who's a woman or a person of color, and to figure out a way that we can help that composer in their near-term career prospects going forward. And we kind of made a decision to stay out of it's an intentionally narrow focus, just to keep it simple and to create a kind of win-win situation for everybody. We didn't want to be in the business of trying to influence filmmakers, tell them who they should hire, but once they've made that decision of who they're going to hire, then we can step in and help out. And that's really where the program started.
Great. Well, then how did Erin get involved?
I have been a member of SESAC for a long time. I've known Erin. I've known Erin for also a long time. Consider her a dear friend. I asked if SESAC would be willing to help out financially. I knew we needed some seed money to get the program off the ground. Erin and SESAC were incredibly responsive and enthusiastic.
Happy ending. So tell us, Erin, from your side.
Well, Chris came to me, like he said, and he had some ideas for creating a program, and we discussed it for a while, and I thought it was amazing. And I went to my boss, who's John Josephson, who's the chairman of SESAC. And I told him about the program that we had discussed, and John was thrilled. And he said, "What can we do?" And I said, "How about me $1 million?" And I said, "Okay, no problem." And it was like, what? So he gave us $1 million to start with. Chris and I,
for 5.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I know. Like he just blink. I'm like, $2 million. So we had some money to start doing what we're calling SESAC Scores, which is a series of workshops. And that's going well, except for the pandemic. We had done a few workshops servicing over 300 people. And then Chris and I decided that we needed to, for the grant program, we needed to start a nonprofit. And so we stumbled through that ourselves for a while, and we're like, boy, this is more complicated than we thought.
We know about that at the AWFC.
Wow, it's a lot of work and a lot of lawyering, and I learned a lot, but we also discussed that we were in over our heads and we know when to ask for help. So at that point, New Music USA stepped in, and New Music is an organization that usually focuses on concert works in the classical world and jazz world, but they were looking to expand their presence into media composers. So we worked with Vanessa Reed over there. She's the new president of New Music USA, and they provided the infrastructure we needed to get the grant program off the ground. They're very experienced with grants. They know how to set it up. They knew, it was very easy for them to step in and take over that aspect of it. And Chris and I were very relieved that we didn't have to, quit our day jobs to figure out how to run a grant program.
Yeah.
So they've been terrific, and then we started asking people to be on our board of advisors, and that worked out really well. And that's when Miriam came into the picture.
Yeah, and it was really a new experience for me to be on the side that gives out money. So it's been fantastic. And so let's talk about our process of how we, how people can apply for the grant. Who wants to do that?
Do you want to go, Chris?
Sure. So the what we look for is, well, first of all, this is for composers who have already been hired on a project that is a real project with a that has already been shot, and that has a budget and a schedule for finishing. And we look for composers who have enough experience that we don't feel it's too much of a risk. We want to support composers who have already demonstrated an ability to see at least one or a couple of projects from start to finish. But at the same time, we don't want to support composers who are already so far in their careers that something like this wouldn't really help them, or are working on a project with a major studio where there's already an adequate budget for getting a great product out there. So it's kind of like a little Goldilocks area in terms of experience. The application process is pretty simple. It involves going to New Music USA's website and registering, and we ask for I don't know if there's a specific range of time we ask for, but a short pitch video where the composer can describe their project and what they intend to bring to it musically and artistically, and why they feel they would be a good candidate for the grant. And for me personally, that's always what I go to first when I review applications, because it really gives me a sense of the project as told through the composer's own words and vision. And I really get a sense of, and I think we all do get a sense of what the project is like, how passionate the composer is, whether there's a clear artistic vision or not, and whether whether the presentation can help, for me personally, can sort of help me imagine that this is a composer who not only has the musical and storytelling talent, but also the ability to present in a room. Filmmakers, we ideally want to support composers who have a big future in this industry. And I think, the way you present yourself as a composer in a room, or, whether it's virtual or in person, is a big part of, as all of you guys know, I'm sure, a big part of what makes a career sustainable and gives it longevity. Aside from the video, of course, there's samples of the composer's work that we get to review, and that's probably, if for me personally, if the video gets me excited, that's where I go to next. And then we also ask that you lay out a somewhat detailed budget, how you would spend the money, how much money you would like, and information about the project. We are interested in projects that we feel have a future as well. So we look for compelling stories. We look for we try to get a feeling for whether this project is going to be
Yeah.
headed to festivals, what kind of talent is behind and maybe in front of the camera.
And the budget too, and if it's possible to make a reasonably good film with that budget they have.
Right, exactly. And whether it's possible to make, the score that's envisioned with the budget that's been allocated.
Yes. And one of the really interesting things about the process we have is, first of all, they've assembled a very diverse group of advisors, some mid-level, some higher level, different, racial makeup, different, there's several women. So one of the things that I think is truly unique about this grant is that the people that are looking at your application are very close to the experience of where you are in your career. We all remember, some of us more than others, some of us have had more of those experiences than others, and so the people, like, first of all, we come from this place of wanting to give the money, just looking for the right fit. So there's a lot of enthusiasm from the advisors, but also that we really can relate to the experience of the composer, and it makes it so that, I don't know how many grants in the world are given out by people who are academics or people who don't really have that lived in experience of who the people are that they're applying for the grant. So that's one of the things. And then we had a question about is this grant only for US composers or US productions, or can someone based in the UK apply?
Currently, it is only for US-based composers. Am I right about that, Erin?
Yeah. They don't have to be American citizens, but US-based composers and US-based productions.
Okay, and then applications are on a rolling basis. This is another question. Yes, they're on a rolling basis. That's another thing that's amazing. We sort of, as they come in, we look at them, and very quickly, and the decisions are made on we make the decisions ourselves. So it can happen very quickly, and that's been really fun too, because I know, and especially filmmakers experience applying for millions of grants and waiting, and then then you miss the deadline or whatever. Here you really get a response to your application fairly quickly. So that's what one of the other great things about it.
Yeah, the advisory board, we meet every 2 weeks to review applications, and that's very intentional. As we all know, the schedules can be pretty tight, and it is tough in an organizational structure with lots of people to be as nimble as we would want to be. But I think we found a good balance with meeting every couple of weeks. We also have the flexibility, if a really outstanding application comes in with a really tight deadline, to act even more quickly than that if we need to. It's definitely tough if you find yourself hired on a film. Perhaps you're replacing another composer's score, and you're in 2 weeks. That's probably a little too tight a turnaround for us to deal with. But for most every typical situation where there's, at least a 6 weeks, let's say, to a few months in between the time a composer's hired and the time that a score needs to be finished, we can act quickly enough to get involved and have a meaningful impact.
Well, one of the other great things about it is that along with the grant money, we assess people and see if they need support, mentorship or other kinds of support, which kind of brings us to a really good place right now for Catherine and Sultana, because we looked at Sultana's deadlines and we kind of assessed the needs of her, and it was really more about her having a lot of live musicians. And so then the question was, could she make the deadline? Would it be helpful for her to have the services of another? So Catherine's Joy House was brought in. We thought it might be really useful for Sultana to have some support, a support team basically, to be able to do a good job on the project. So she had that kind of service. So why don't you guys talk about your experience? Sultana, how about you start?
It was a wonderful experience. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be introduced into an international network of choirs and orchestras. And for the remainder of the score that I was applying for funding for, I wrote a few orchestral pieces and a choral piece and a few other like chamber works. And it was kind of overwhelming to imagine assembling a choir and an orchestra, especially during, you know, these times. So I didn't even know where to begin. You know, I was reaching out to certain local choirs here, and it was just getting really complicated. So, and then I also was working on other projects at the same time. So it was like, I just need someone to, like, I wrote all of this, I need you to find the people for me and record it for me. And that's when Catherine stepped in. JB connected me to her. So I was really thankful to collaborate with her in that process. You know, I was getting deadlines, a new deadline, like all the time. And she was very patient with me in that process. And I was a little nervous, like, oh, I'm so sorry, but I actually need this yesterday. But it moved very smoothly, very quickly. And yeah, I'm really thankful for that experience.
Yeah, it was
really
definitely an exciting ride. I mean, every film score is, I think. So, you know, I run Joy Music House, which is a score production company where we support amazing composers like Sultana and Miriam and many others. And, you know, we're very used to this kind of last minute, you know, here's the, in Sultana's case, the logic session, here's the mock-up, we need it yesterday kind of situation. So with her orchestral piece, we recorded strings with Fames in Macedonia, who I've worked with a lot, and they're a fantastic, just a wonderful orchestra, and they were really thrilled to be part of this project. I think the most challenging thing was that Sultana wrote this really interesting choral piece for a children's choir, and you know, was still very much in the pandemic at that time. So I reached out to the West LA Children's Choir. Barbara Silberg is fantastic. She runs it. And I was like, here's the project, you know, do you think we can make this happen? And I sent Sultana a bunch of pictures. Like we literally had all these children individually, like listening to the music and singing in their wardrobe, which is where so many VO people and singers are recording these days. And then our incredible engineer, Brian Taylor, just had to stitch it all together. And I was just like, dude, you know, make magic happen, because you have to take this kid's voice and combine it with these kiddos' voices and put it together. So, I mean, it was an adventure, but it came out really well. Really excited to work with Sultana. And then we also got to work with just some other LA instrumentalists to do, we had some percussion, which was awesome. That was Babak Lotfipour and some clarinet, right? Virginia did that. So it was really cool, just kind of putting it all together and making it happen for Sultana. And it's premiering at Tribeca, right?
Premiering at Tribeca, which will be in person this year. And it will be, the television broadcast will be on PBS on the show for POV in a little after Tribeca. So pretty soon after that.
So I would say this is like our idea of a dream project for our grant, because it's going to have a high profile, you know, already. And because it really stepped up what Sultana was able to deliver. And you brought it in on budget and deadline, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This brings up a really important subject, which I have personally experienced, where you get to the point in your career where you just cannot manage it. You can't do all the work yourself and stay on the deadline. And you know, most composers that have been doing it a long time and are working steadily and earning enough money are able to have a team, which is really what you need to be able to pull this off in a really professional way. And so over the last many years, you know, as I came to that point in my own career, I realized I just could no longer function alone. And so I think the idea that there's support service for composers who normally wouldn't be able to access that kind of a team for support of their project, I think it's really important for composers in the comfort zone that we're looking for in their career, that they have that ability. And that's, of course, provided by the budget, and also knowing that something like that exists, because a lot of composers have to keep their staff together, and they're always having to keep working to keep their staff working so they can keep them together. But when you're an independent composer, you know, you can't afford to have people on salary. So this is a terrific way for composers to get the kind of support they need. And I'm here to vouch for it. It's made a huge difference. Now I actually enjoy working again because I can actually get the help I need. And so anyway, that's another thing that we can offer, plus the mentorships. Did we talk about that yet? Because that's really important too. Chris, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. It totally slipped my mind to mention it, but that's a big part of it, is that each grant winner gets if they want, a mentor assigned to them to guide them through the project. It works. It helps both of us because for us, we want to make sure that the money that we're giving is spent. I don't even want, it doesn't even have to be wisely. It just has to be like legitimately. We don't want to see the money go towards song licensing. We don't want to see filmmakers abuse the intent of the grant. And we want to make sure that the composers are being as efficient as they can be with how that money is spent and how production goes. And having the level of experience that we do on the advisory board, I think is a great help to help them get the most out of the money, and it assures us that that the money is being spent in a way that you can really hear in the finished product. And I am personally mentoring Emer Kinsella, who was our first grantee, and it has been a bit of a process. They've had a couple of delays in their post schedule, but it's been, I've been hanging out with her every couple of weeks. And we have not only talked about the specifics of the hurdles that have come up in terms of this particular film, but we've also had a couple of sessions where I've let her into my process, and some areas of more technical questions and business questions, and it's been a really great relationship. I just want to, like, real quick, just like popcorn style, get through some of these questions because some of these will be really quick. Okay, Sarah had a question about bringing something similar to Irish composers. Do you specify rights remain with composer for the resulting music, allowing them to continue the benefit, or is this a factor? So we don't get involved in the deals that the composers make with the production company. Whatever deal they make is what we is what we respect. We of course are available for guidance in this area. We're not lawyers. We're not agents, but we can definitely offer our experience. But no, we stay out of that part. Would a series made for video on demand or streaming qualify? Probably not. An ongoing series is just a commitment that we cannot offer right now. But we intentionally left a lot of these qualifications open-ended on our application. I think if there were a really special series that came along and we could maybe support a composer in the first episode, for example, or maybe there's a pilot, or maybe it's a limited, very limited series, maybe just a few episodes, where we feel like we can really have an impact, then we would definitely consider it. And can New Music USA grants apply to musicals, whether on stage or on film, TV? Probably not on stage for us, but absolutely. If there's a film that's a musical, we're down to consider it. Absolutely. And then there's a couple other questions about how to get more experience, and a very general, what else should I be doing to further my musical career? This is not something we have time for. That's a huge open-ended question. But I would say, let me just focus on how do you get more experience when you don't live in LA or any hub. Every There's colleges and universities around everywhere that have film programs. I would suggest getting to know some of the student filmmakers in your area and work on some student films to get that kind of experience.
And the other thing you can do is the Society of Composers and Lyricists has all kinds of resources and programs. You should become a member, and you should, participate as much as you can. And now everything can also be offered online so that you can participate even in live events, even when the pandemic is over. So definitely do that. And of course, the AWFC has lots of incredible resources. And, the directory, maybe you call up some women composers and see if they need an assistant or things like that. So
I also want to
go ahead.
Put a plug out there also for the Composer Diversity Collective, which is JB, who we've been talking about today, is part of the leadership of that fantastic organization founded by Michael Abels. The AWFC partners a lot with the Composer Diversity Collective to do events. And so that is, in addition to the AWFC and the SCL, is another great organization, also has a directory, also doing a lot of things online to support their composers. So, and with all of these organizations, there's like student membership, there's like fiscal options to make it a bit more viable for you. So, but I know for me, the AWFC and the SCL before the AWFC existed was a massive resource for me as a young composer to get to know this community and to meet Miriam and other composers like her and just get mentored just by attending.
Well, there's also networking is one of the most important things you can ever do. I always say no composer, we work alone and we're isolated a lot, but no composer can get through this career without a network of support. Whether it be people like that you can call at midnight when your gear isn't working. I have friends that got me through those situations, and you're on deadline, or it's Friday night and there's nobody to get you help, until Monday. You really need to network and get to know other people. And like, for instance, even on Facebook, I've been seeing some of my former students from Chicago. They're like, people are always posting job opportunities because like maybe they can't do it, but they post it. So the more people you get to know, in our field and become friendly with and support each other, you may end up being on someone else's team when they need, someone to do even just getting dinner for the musicians. But that's a way to get to know people and join their team and figure out what you might be able to be plugged into. So I guess if you live far away, it's a little harder, obviously, but there's usually, there's some sort of musical projects going on in a lot of major cities all over the world. And a lot of the universities have programs also that you can connect with, especially if it's a film program. But if you need mentorship, there's ways, like you could even come to Los Angeles for a limited time and do like something like the UCLA extension courses, which is what I did, and you can learn a lot of stuff about the specifics of film composing. Do we have more questions? Because I think we've covered most of what we want to cover, right?
I wanted to mention.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to mention what our sponsors are doing too.
Yes.
Because we have 3 sponsors, Native Instruments, Steinberg, and Spitfire Audio. So, Chris, do you want to go into what they're doing for us?
Yeah, sure. These 3 companies have offered to start with software, this is a kind of a brand new relationship for us. We're still figuring out exactly what that's going to look like, and I can't remember the details of what each of the 3 companies is going to offer, but I do know that they are ready to deliver like download keys for our winners so that they can supplement their existing sample library collection with some new stuff that would be helpful for their project. And I also know we're talking with Steinberg about possibly including some hardware. They have a line of audio interfaces that are excellent. And we haven't quite set that up yet, but that's definitely coming in the near future.
And just so you know, we're also exploring future alliances with very exciting possibilities. So this is a grant that hopes to expand, and a program that hopes to expand. And I don't know what we're at liberty to talk about now, but just know that it's not stopping where it is. It's moving forward in a hopefully larger way even to other things. We do have a question here that says, would it be possible to apply as two composers who want to work on the same project? I would say probably yes. I mean, we're very open to any possible ways that people want to work and how we can help in some way. So I would think that we're able to do that. You think so, Erin?
I do. Probably one grant for the project, but
Yes.
if composers are co-writing, that's not a problem.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got.
There's a
Anybody
question
else?
here for Sultana.
Oh, go ahead.
So Sultana, the question is, apart from funding, what other forms of support would you like organizations like New Music USA and SESAC to be thinking about for up and coming composers? What kind of support are you looking for?
That's a good question. I think everyone's levels are different. Some people need to learn certain things. For me, growing up in the classical world, I was never taught engineering skills. Like I was taught how to orchestrate and all that stuff that we do in our careers, but I was never taught how to engineer my own work. So that was something that I kind of just stumbled along. It just kind of came. And I'm still learning a lot. And at times I can feel frustrated, like when Miriam was talking about, at night your gear just suddenly just stops. It's happened so many times. And I'm thankful for the friends that I have and this network to help me when those very frustrating moments happen. But I think the organizations that they've listed and are really good for building those connections. I think it just helps to just know other composers. It's a very lonely experience. It's a lot of time by yourself, and you can get kind of in your head and living in the world of your project, and you kind of forget the outside world and just understanding the process of it all and revering that process. So I don't know if it's necessarily something they can do other than just connect us with each other to learn these skills. That really helps me, just being connected with others in this field.
I would think that wherever you live, you really need to explore what resources are available in the nearest city or the nearest university. Because at a university that has some kind of film program, you can always try to meet student filmmakers. And if you're in for instance, in Europe, there's things like, I've done workshops for like this international documentary organization. I mean, you just have to be very resourceful. It's part of building your career and deciding where you want to live when you build your career. I mean, if you want a career in the United States, then you probably need to come here, to get started at least, and then you can go live in Iceland or something and have a really nice life quietly. But you need to be near things.
That's definitely a dream.
Yeah. So do we have any other questions? Let's see. We have about almost more than 15 minutes left. So
I would say that I do think that there's a power in not living in a place that is seen as a hub for film a lot of the time. Like I live in New Orleans, so there is a film community here, but it's not LA or New York. It's smaller, it's very intimate. And I feel like there is a power in that. I'm around different sounds. I'm around different way of thought. I'm around people of many disciplines. And I think that we can, it's a power, you just have to recognize it. There's a power in living in LA, obviously, but there's also a power in living in the other LA, which is Louisiana, because we have LA. But there's a power in that. And I think there's something that can be harnessed in being an individual of that experience and just knowing who you are and just being trustful of the process. Film composing is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I think because of the lack of representation, I didn't really consider it. And I was trained to be a performer, a violinist in like concert music and things like that. And for me, it just kind of fell in my lap, honestly. And I'm really thankful for that experience because it helped me grow and advance even more. But recognize what's already around you and work with that.
Well, the truth is, one of the most important parts of being a successful composer is having a voice. And if everybody's from the same place, hearing the same sounds, it may be harder for that to happen. So it is a strength, actually, because, you know, we all have seen, if you pay attention, some new composer shows up who you've never seen before doing film, but they're from somewhere like Iceland or Berlin or whatever, and they're the new special thing because it brings some kind of a new voice to our profession. So I think build on the strengths that you have, and if you want to stay where you are, then develop a career there. You know, there's all kinds of things to do.
And I will also say that that's beautifully stated, Sultana. And I will also say that there is never a better time to not be in LA than right now. We're all so used to working remotely that no one's going to trip on that in a way that they might have a year and a half ago, where they would have maybe been a little concerned about about working with someone who's not in LA, because when are we ever going to meet in person? Now people realize that that is not really as big a deal as it used to be. So, and I also want to echo the thing Miriam said and that Sultana touched on too, which is that there can be a certain cachet in not being from LA, and just in terms of the artistic component, we're all aware that there's a certain homogeneousness to the Hollywood sound, and not every filmmaker, in fact, a lot of filmmakers, maybe even most, really value a musical voice that is unique and different. And not being from LA, I think, can enhance your, in more crass terms, your marketability and your sellability as a composer for those filmmakers who are looking for that.
Especially also independent film has just risen to a new level, even among Hollywood, even in Hollywood, as we see at the Oscars. Some independent films are winning Oscars. And so there's a lot of, you know, I think it's a really good time in terms of being global and the world, you know, people being interested in new sounds and opportunities for things that are unique and different, you know, even though we still have our tent poles going on. I think there's much more going on in the industry as a whole. Plus with streaming, there's just a huge amount of work. But that's a different workshop about music rights. I was wondering, Erin, do you want to talk anything about your SESAC workshops and who
sure.
qualifies, and because I know nothing about that.
Yeah, it's a separate program run by SESAC, and Chris works with us on this, and we've had workshops with several workshops with Chris, also Danny Lux, who's a TV composer, John Swihart also did one, who is a lot of indie films and television shows. So our main workshop formula is a weekend workshop, which is held in Los Angeles, and it's a Friday night. We have a reception where we meet all the participants, and then Saturday and Sunday are spent in all-day seminars at the SESAC offices, where we have empty workstations, so people bring their mobile rigs and set up, and whoever's hosting the workshop, let's say Chris, will have a spotting session for a film, a scene from a film, and we go through it, and then everyone goes back to their workstations and starts scoring. We take a break for lunch. We'll have usually a guest speaker come in. Sometimes it's an agent, sometimes it's another composer, and then back to work in the afternoon. And then at the end of the day, we all get together in the conference room and show the works to each other and critique. And it's been really successful. We usually host 10 to 12 people, and so that's one type of workshop. We've also we did a really wonderful workshop with Richard Kraft, who is an agent in LA. and he talked about agenting and when you need an agent, how to get an agent. And then we went through an exercise where Richard and we had a music supervisor and a film director would listen to clips of people's reels. They'd listen to the first, what was it, Chris, 24 seconds, I think. And then they'd hit a buzzer and decide, or Chris hit a gong actually. And we had, and then they would decide whether or not they wanted to continue listening to this demo or not.
Wow.
And it was very interesting in how you have to kind of get to the point immediately in your reels. And it was a lot of fun, and we had that in an auditorium, so we could accommodate quite a few people in that.
So do the people have to be SESAC writers, or can it be?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
That's important because, yeah.
Yeah, most of them were not SESAC writers, actually. So it's same with the grant program. It has, we fund it, but it's not important for them to be with SESAC. Wow,
great. Developing the future.
Absolutely. That's the most important part.
Yeah. Let's see if we have more questions.
I will say, I'm sorry. I remember when someone asked me about what else would I like to know. That's something that I would like to know more about. Like career development, knowing how to, what's the fair price, when to know an agent or when to get an agent, things like that. I think that would be wonderful as well. In addition,
I know the SCL does stuff like that, definitely. And I think even the AWFC does. So, keep your eyes open for things that are coming up in various organizations.
Yeah, we just did a panel about agents. We had a number of the agents come and speak to us. I think that was last week. So the AWFC does have professional development opportunities for all of its members. We do it through these inside sessions every Wednesday, and then we have other workshops and things as well. So definitely watch this space.
Are people able to access workshops or panels that have already happened? And do you have a place that they can view it?
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel, and I think Ashley can put the link to that in the chat. So we are recording more and more of our events, so you can go back to them. I know that I did an assistantship, chat about becoming an assistant or when you should hire an assistant. And that was a really interesting conversation we had with both our UK and our US members. So you can check that out. And also Anne Catherine Dern does fantastic tech series where she talks about templates and mixing and how to prepare for a session and all that kind of nitty-gritty tech stuff. And she has her own YouTube channel that you can check out, but also doing those sessions with us once a month here in this inside session on Wednesdays. So they are super valuable for when you're trying to work on your workflow and, wanting to know the best way to do things and how to improve that for yourself. So definitely check those out. Great resource.
And don't wait too long, because when you get to be my age, that becomes harder to change.
It's true.
It's really true. DP 10,000.
I think also if you get a chance to be mentored by someone like Christophe, it's incredible how those things are just so huge for your workflow. Workflow is a massive part of composing. It's not the sexy part, but it's integral.
Well, let's see how we're doing. We have a few more, about 10 more minutes. Any other questions? Anything anybody wants to talk about? We're so efficient. Here we go. Is there a go-to engineer for logic, Neve, apogee issues? I don't know. Does anybody want to address that question? I can tell you, I always had I had a tech for many years who was my age and really was doing a fabulous job. But what I'm learning now is that young people popping out of school are so technically savvy that now my assistant, Alberto Cruz, is he can do anything I ask. I mean, it's unbelievable. If he doesn't know how to do it, he just finds out and then he does it. Really complex technical issues. So I think that anyway, I mean, I could recommend him highly, and I'm sure other
That's who
people
I was
have. Yeah, I mean, he's just like, and we do it remotely. I'll be sitting here at my rig, and he'll be fixing it, and 10 minutes later, I'm back up and working. So I mean,
seriously, jumping on one logic guru. I mean, I completely agree. Like younger people who are just like really excited about tech, you know, they're in your composer community. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, really plugging into your composer community. And then if you're on, you know, like one of the Facebook forums or something, you know, just reaching out and saying like, do you consider yourself a logic guru? Can I buy you lunch, or can I pay you a small amount for your time for you to sit down with me, either remotely on Zoom or whatever, so I can ask you, screen share, ask you a million questions. I mean, when I was starting out, I literally hired like my mentor to come and sit with me in front of DP, you know, for like 2 hours so we could just go through the program together. I do realize that the technical stuff can be super challenging and seem like a real hurdle to get over. But when you sit down with someone, you know, it can make it accessible really quickly. So I would definitely reach out to your community. You can even email us here. Sorry, I have an ambulance going by. You can email us here at the AWFC if you want a few names of people to reach out to, and we'll try and hook you up. But this is where your community is just so important.
very important. And you know, the thing that you have to be careful of, I mean, you may feel like you can actually do a lot of stuff yourself, but there's so much changing so quickly all the time, and version this and version that, and are they compatible? And then you get this new VEP, and then you try to hook it up to your system, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I can't access any of my libraries. So I mean, you really, it's not enough to just be good at tech stuff. You have to also be very current with the technology and where and what you're using, what system, what, you know, everything. It's like constantly moving. It's moving targets. Nothing stands still. So it's good to have someone. I know that, you know, it takes years off my life when I didn't have the kind of help I needed, you know, and it can really stop your workflow for days or maybe weeks even if you can't solve it. So it's really something important to learn about and have the resources you need to be able to keep yourself running.
Do you see this question in the chat? Can grantees use grant money to buy software?
Chris?
Absolutely. We have looked at a whole bunch of applications, and many of them have a line item in the budget for software. So the answer is yes.
That was easy.
So
yeah, of course.
With the budget, really the only thing that's kind of you're not looking at is licensing, but really anything else in the workflow of scoring is an option.
We try to leave it as open-ended as is reasonable, because every score is different. Every composer is different in terms of the resources, in terms of hardware and software that they bring to the table. And, you know, we try to evaluate each application on a case-by-case basis. And if it seems reasonable that you know, the purchase of some particular piece of software would be great for this particular project, then absolutely. We try not to micromanage the way composers spend the money. I mean, beyond looking at a budget and deciding that it's reasonable, and all the other factors that come into play, whether we decide to award a grant or not. You know, the actual mechanics of putting the score together, and the details of exactly where every penny goes. You know, at least I personally tend to err on the side of trusting the composer. Of course, with mentorship and communication, and making sure that there's nothing really unreasonable or foolish going on. You know, that we understand every score is different, every film is different, and we also understand that as you write a score, your needs may evolve.
Do you ever see things that, do you ever look at budgets? Like, are there any common things that you feel like a composer may forget to add that you would like to mention in this space? Like, be mindful of this?
To answer your specific question, no. I thought you were going to go the other way with it. Do you ever see,
Yeah.
you ever see composers ask for things that turn us off? And I would say we've seen a few applications where there have been some surprisingly large asks for like composer compensation. I think in this particular case, we like to see the money go into the score, while at the same time, we also want to make sure that we understand the composer is going to be devoting a few months of their lives to the score, and we don't want them to starve either. So we're not saying no to that. But to answer your specific question, things that people forget, I don't know, Miriam, does anything come to mind?
Well, sometimes they, I know that I think several times we've had people want to buy a whole computer, very expensive computer. And we, if there's nothing else going on in the budget for the music, we might not be so inclined to buy them a new computer, but maybe they need a hard drive to have the space to work or something, because I would think a person generally, not Sultana was a whole different unique experience, but generally the people that we're targeting already have a rig and they've been working. And so we don't really want to finance their new Mac, because I'd rather get one than them. So, but just joking.
Oh, you can always apply to this Real Change grant, Miriam, if you're interested.
Okay. There was something else I wanted to mention, but I know what it is. We also don't want the filmmakers to go, oh, so now we don't have to use the budget we budgeted for the score. No, this is to enhance the score. We don't want to replace the music budget. So if there's already a music budget, then this is on top of that. That's really important that people understand that, because part of what this is going to be too is helping to, in some ways, kind of familiarize the filmmakers with how important having the right, having what you need and the resources to do a good score is. And so we don't want to eliminate what they've already, the fact that they've already got a budget means they care about the music. So we don't want to eliminate that. What else?
Great. Well, I think we've covered all the questions, and we've seen a number of thank yous come up in the chat. And I definitely just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here on an AWFC Inside session and inform our members about this fantastic grant. And I hope everyone will now go. And if we can, Ashley, if you can just put a link in one more time now to the application for the grant, that would be awesome. So you guys can go and check it out. And also, everyone in the audience, if you scroll up, Vanessa from Real Change was on here. She gave us both the link, and also there's also a link to the story of how we all got together to make this brilliant fund happen. So make sure you scroll up and click on those links now before the Zoom disappears, so you can check that out afterwards. But I would like to thank Miriam, Sultana, Erin, and Christophe. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for supporting the AWFC. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Maybe at an in-person event. Who knows?
Yeah. Good luck, everybody.
This has been awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, attendees. Take care.